February 8, 1945. 1 p.m. A skeletal man in striped prison rags drops his shovel on frozen concrete. His name is Mikhail Devyataev, prisoner 332. The Germans don't know he's a fighter pilot with 9 kills. They think he's just another dying slave. 50 meters away sits a Heinkel He-111 bomber, engines warm, tanks full. In exactly 3 minutes, Mikhail will either steal it or die trying. But this moment is the result of 7 months in hell. Let me show you how a Soviet fighter ace became a ghost, survived 4 concentration camps, and planned the most audacious escape of World War II. July 13, 1944. Ukrainian skies near Lvov. Mikhail flies his P-39 Airacobra on his 4th sortie of the day. He's already got 9 confirmed kills, been shot down 4 times and always came back. Today is different. A Messerschmitt drops from the sun. Cannon rounds tear his wing apart. The engine explodes. Mikhail bails out over enemy territory and lands in German hands. The Germans check his documents. Fighter pilot. They smile. Pilots get special treatment, interrogation, then execution. Mikhail has maybe 3 days to live, but in the POW collection point, he sees his chance. A dead Soviet infantryman lies in the mud, nobody watching the body. Mikhail swaps their documents. When the Germans check him again, he's now Private Ivan Grigoriev, infantry. Not worth killing immediately. This lie saves his life. They send him to Łódź labor camp in Poland, 12-hour shifts, starvation rations, men dying every day. After 1 month, Mikhail can't take it. He and 3 others try to escape during a work detail. They overpower a guard and run for the forest. Machine gun fire cuts them down. A bullet goes through Mikhail's thigh. Guards beat him unconscious. He wakes up in Sachsenhausen death camp near Berlin. This is where they send prisoners marked for execution. They throw him in a punishment cell for 2 weeks. No light, no bed, food once every 3 days. His leg wound gets infected, swells purple. A French doctor prisoner risks his life to steal antibiotics and treat Mikhail in secret. "If they catch me, we both die," he whispers. Mikhail survives. Young and stubborn, his body fights the infection, but now he has a permanent limp. The guards laugh. This cripple won't escape again. October 1944. Whispers spread through the camp. They're transferring workers to a secret island facility. Something about rockets, dangerous work. Everyone knows what happens to witnesses of secret weapons. They get eliminated when the project ends. But Mikhail hears one word that changes everything. Airfield. Secret facilities need supply planes. His pilot instincts wake up for the first time in months. When the SS asks for volunteers, Mikhail raises his hand. Late October, they transport 400 prisoners to Usedom Island in the Baltic Sea. Mikhail sees the massive complex covering the northern tip, concrete bunkers, testing stands, and a 2-kilometer runway with aircraft. This is Peenemunde, Hitler's most secret weapons facility where Werner von Braun builds V-2 ballistic missiles that can hit London from 300 kilometers away. Mikhail's work detail maintains runways and builds aircraft shelters. Every day, he's 200 meters from German bombers and transports. At night, he stares at the ceiling and thinks, he's a pilot the Germans don't know. There are planes right there. If he could somehow start one, take off before guards react. It's insane. But what's his alternative? Wait to die from starvation or get executed as a witness? November 1944. Mikhail carefully recruits allies. First is Vladimir Sokolov, an aircraft mechanic who knows engines intimately. Then Ivan Krivinogov, a bomber navigator with a burn-scarred face who can navigate by stars without instruments. They bring in 8 more, all Soviet military, all desperate enough to risk everything, 10 men total. They watch the airfield for months, memorizing guard patterns, aircraft positions, maintenance procedures. Sokolov identifies their target, the commandant's personal He-111, always fueled and ready because he hates waiting. It parks near the main taxiway with minimal guards. They plan meticulously. The window is lunch hour, 12:30, 13:30, when only 1 guard remains. They'll need 4 minutes from first move to wheels up, 240 seconds to escape or die. But in early February, disaster strikes. Mikhail gets into a conflict with criminal prisoners in the camp. They give him an ultimatum, 10 days to live. It's a death sentence from the camp's underground criminal network. He has to escape immediately or die. February 7th, night before the escape. Mikhail can't sleep. He goes over every detail. Tomorrow they move or they're dead anyway. He tells Krivonoglov, tomorrow, 1 o'clock. February 8th, 1 p.m., Mikhail, Krivonoglov, Sokolov, and 7 others shovel snow near the commandant's He-111. One guard watches them, bored and cold. The bomber sits 50 meters away, engines recently run, tanks full. Mikhail drops his shovel. The signal. Krivonoglov swings a crowbar at the guard's head. The man drops without a sound. 10 prisoners sprint toward the aircraft. They have 4 minutes to live or be free. Mikhail reaches the He-111 first. The massive bomber towers over him, 11 tons of metal and fuel with a glass nose like an insect's eye. He pulls himself onto the wing, slipping on ice, scrambles to the crew hatch. Behind him, Sokolov and Krivonoglov push the other men up. Someone's shouting. A German mechanic saw them from across the field. Alarms will sound in seconds. Mikhail drops into the cockpit. The smell hits him. Aviation fuel, leather, German cigarettes. The instrument panel is a nightmare of German labels. Kraftstoff, Höhe, Geschwindigkeit. He slides into the pilot's seat on the left. Huge glass canopy surrounds him. He can see German soldiers running toward them now, 100 meters away. Starters, Sokolov shouts, climbing in behind him. Red buttons, right side. Mikhail's hands shake. He finds 2 red buttons marked Anlasser. Pushes the first one. Nothing. The engine coughs, dies. Gunfire erupts. Bullets ping off the bomber's aluminum skin. Someone screams. One of their men is hit climbing into the fuselage. Fuel mixture! Rich! Sokolov yells, pointing at a lever. Mikhail yanks it forward, hits the starter again. The left Jumo engine roars to life. Black smoke belches from the exhaust. The 3-bladed propeller spins, slowly at first, then faster. The noise is deafening inside the glass cockpit. Germans are at the wing now. One tries to climb up. Krivonoglov kicks him in the face. The man falls, blood spraying from his broken nose. Right engine! Mikhail hits the second starter. It catches immediately, both engines screaming now at idle power. He grabs the throttle levers, thick metal handles in the center console, pushes them forward. The He-111 lurches but doesn't move. Brakes are locked. Where the fuck are the brakes? Mikhail screams. Sokolov scans the cockpit frantically, finds a lever marked Bremse, brake, releases it. The bomber shoots forward, gaining speed across the taxiway. Germans scatter. Some keep shooting. A bullet shatters the glass panel right next to Mikhail's head. Shards cut his cheek. Blood runs into his eye, but he keeps both hands on the controls. The runway is 200 meters ahead. Behind them, an alarm siren wails. Guards pour out of buildings. A half-track with a machine gun races toward the runway to cut them off. Mikhail steers the He-111 onto the runway, lines up with the center line. He's never flown a bomber this heavy. The P-39 fighter he flew weighed 4 tons. This monster weighs 11 tons fully loaded. Will it even get airborne with 10 men inside? No time to think. He pushes both throttles to maximum power. The Jumo engines howl. The propeller noise becomes a roar. The bomber accelerates down the concrete runway, 60 kilometers per hour, 80, 100. The end of the runway approaches, 1,000 meters away. They need 140 km/h minimum for takeoff. Anti-aircraft guns open fire. Flak bursts explode around them. Black puffs of smoke and shrapnel. One shell detonates under the left wing. The blast wave lifts the entire aircraft. Mikhail fights the controls, keeps it level. 120 km/h, 500 meters of runway left. The half-track is trying to drive across the runway ahead to block them. Mikhail aims straight at it. The German driver sees the bomber coming and swerves away at the last second. 140 km/h, 200 meters left. Mikhail pulls back on the control yoke. The nose starts to lift, but the tail wheel is still down. The bomber is too heavy. "Come on, you German pig, fly!" Mikhail screams, hauling back on the yoke with all his strength. 100 meters. The trees at the end of the field fill the windscreen. Sokolov closes his eyes. Krivonoglov prays in a whisper. 50 meters. The main wheels lift off the concrete. They're airborne, barely. The tail wheel drags, then breaks free. The tree line rushes at them. Mikhail keeps pulling back. The He-111 claws for altitude, straining, engines at maximum power. A pine tree top brushes the belly of the aircraft with a scraping sound. Then they're clear. Climbing. 50 meters altitude, 100 meters, 200 meters. They did it. They stole a German bomber from Hitler's most secret base, and they're alive. Mikhail allows himself one breath. Then reality crashes back. They're flying a German bomber with huge black crosses on the wings. Every gun in the Third Reich will try to kill them. They have maybe 300 kilometers to reach Soviet lines. The fuel gauge shows 3/4 full, enough for maybe 2 hours, and they're flying blind. No map, no radio codes, no idea where the front line is. Just heading east toward the rising sun and hoping. Krivenogov climbs into the navigator's position in the glass nose. "Fly low," he shouts over the engine noise. "Under radar, head for the coast, then follow it south until we see Soviet positions." Mikhail nods, pushes the nose down. They drop to 300 meters above the Baltic Sea. Gray water and white ice floes blur beneath them. If a German fighter spots them, they're finished. The He-111 is a bomber, not built for combat maneuvers. Behind them, Peenemunde disappears into the winter haze, the secret island where prisoners died building Hitler's vengeance weapons, the place they thought would be their grave. Mikhail glances back through the cockpit glass at the 9 men crammed in the fuselage. They're alive. For now. 10 men who were supposed to die, 10 men flying a stolen bomber toward freedom or destruction. The war's most unlikely crew on its most desperate mission. The flight has only just begun. Mikhail holds the He-111 at 300 meters above the Baltic Sea, engines at cruise power, speed 280 km/h. His hands are locked on the control yoke, knuckles white. Blood from the glass cut on his face drips onto the instrument panel. Every few seconds, he wipes his eyes with his sleeve. 15 minutes since takeoff. The German coast is behind them now. Open water below. Krivenogov, wedged in the glass nose compartment, scans the horizon for landmarks. In the fuselage behind Mikhail, the 8 other escapees sit in silence. One man, the one who was shot climbing aboard, is bleeding badly from a shoulder wound. Sokolov rips strips from his prison uniform to make bandages, but blood soaks through immediately. The man's face is pale, lips blue. Shock is setting in. No medical supplies, no parachutes, no life vests. If this aircraft goes down, everyone dies. Mikhail's mind races. He's never flown a heavy bomber before. The He-111 handles completely different from his nimble P-39 fighter. It's sluggish, heavy, slow to respond. Every control input takes 3 seconds to register. The slightest miscalculation, and they'll stall, spin, crash into the sea. And he's exhausted. 7 months as a prisoner, surviving on 600 calories a day. His body is skeletal. His arms shake from the effort of holding the controls. How much longer can he fly? An hour. 2. 20 minutes in, Krivenogov shouts, "Land ahead, east!" Mikhail sees it, a dark line on the horizon, the Polish coast. But is it German-occupied or liberated? The front line moves every day. They could be flying straight into German anti-aircraft guns. He angles toward the coast, climbing to 500 meters for better visibility. As they cross the shoreline, Mikhail sees a small town below. Smoke rises from chimneys, a church steeple, railroad tracks running north-south, then tracer fire. Bright red streaks arc up from the town, passing just in front of the He-111. Anti-aircraft guns, but German or Soviet. Both sides shoot first and ask questions later. "Evasive!" Sokolov screams. Mikhail banks left hard. The bomber rolls sluggishly. More tracers. A full anti-aircraft battery firing now. Shells explode around them. Black smoke puffs with orange cores. Shrapnel pings against the fuselage. He dives back toward the deck, pushing the nose down. Engines howling. 400 meters, 300, 200. The ground rushes up. He levels off at 100 meters, just above the treetops, and turns south, away from the guns. "Who is shooting?" Krivenogov yells. "Don't know, don't care. Too low for them now." Mikhail keeps the throttles at maximum. The He-111 shakes and rattles, stressed beyond its design limits. They fly south for 10 minutes at treetop level. Mikhail's arms scream with pain from fighting the controls. Sweat pours down his face despite the freezing cabin temperature. The fuel gauge needle drops steadily. They've burned a quarter tank already. Then Krivenogov points ahead. "Smoke! Burning town! That's the front line!" Mikhail sees it, massive columns of black smoke rising from what looks like a city. Artillery flashes on the ground. This is active combat zone. Soviet and German forces locked in battle. Which direction are the Soviet lines? East? West? No way to know. They're flying into a meat grinder blind. Mikhail makes a decision. We land. Right now, before we get shot down by either side. Where? Sokolov looks at him like he's insane. There. Mikhail points at a snow-covered field ahead. It's rough, probably full of ditches and frozen furrows, but it's the only clear space in sight. He pulls back the throttles. The engine noise drops to a rumble. The He-111 slows, nose rising. 200 km/h, 180, 160. He deploys the flaps, metal panels extending from the wing trailing edges. The bomber shudders, settling into landing configuration. Everyone hold on, Mikhail shouts. This is going to be rough. The field rushes up, 50 meters, 30, 10. Mikhail flares, pulling back on the yoke to raise the nose and bleed off speed. The main wheels touch snow, impact. The He-111 slams down hard, too hard. The left landing gear collapses immediately with a metallic crunch. The wing drops, digs into snow. The aircraft veers left violently. Mikhail stands on the right rudder pedal, trying to keep it straight. Useless. The bomber skids sideways, tearing through frozen earth, throwing snow in huge plumes. The right gear folds too. Now they're sliding on the belly, screeching metal, shedding pieces. A fence post rips through the left wing. The propeller blades strike the ground and shatter, sending shrapnel spinning. The nose drops, plows a furrow in the snow. Glass cracks, framework bends. Then, silence. The engines die. Hissing steam from ruptured coolant lines, groans from injured men in the fuselage, but they've stopped moving. Mikhail sits frozen in the pilot's seat, hands still gripping the yoke. He's alive. They're all alive. They flew 320 kilometers in a stolen German bomber and survived. Sokolov puts a hand on his shoulder. We did it, Misha. We actually did it. Mikhail starts laughing, then crying, then both at once. 7 months of hell, 2 escape attempts, 4 concentration camps, and now this, sitting in a wrecked German aircraft in a snowy field somewhere in Poland. We need to move, Krivonogov says, pulling open the crew hatch, before someone shows up. They climb out one by one. The wounded man needs help. 2 others support him as he staggers down. The He-111 is destroyed, belly torn open, wings crumpled, tail twisted. But it got them here. 10 condemned men turned free by a machine designed to bomb cities. As they stumble away from the wreckage, Mikhail sees figures running toward them across the snow. Soldiers. But which side? His heart stops. After everything, they might die in the next 30 seconds. Then he sees them clearly. Fur hats, Soviet infantry uniforms, rifles with bayonets, but lowering now as they see the striped prison clothes. Don't shoot! Mikhail screams in Russian. We're Soviet military, escaped from German prison camp. The soldiers surround them, weapons trained but cautious. An officer approaches, young face stunned with disbelief. You flew that? A German bomber? Stole it, Mikhail says, exhausted past the point of caring. From Peenemunde, Hitler's rocket base. We have information, critical intelligence. Take us to your commander, now. The officer stares at the wrecked He-111, then at the skeletal prisoners in rags, then back at the aircraft. This is impossible. Tell us about it, Sokolov mutters. They made it. Against every odd, every law of probability, every rational expectation. 10 dying slaves stole a bomber from Nazi Germany's most secret base and flew it to freedom. But their ordeal is far from over. In Stalin's Soviet Union, anyone who was captured is automatically suspect. And their story is so impossible that nobody will believe it. The Soviet soldiers give them water, bread, and blankets. They transport the wounded man to a field hospital. The rest are loaded onto a truck heading east, away from the front line. Mikhail expects celebration, recognition. Instead, the soldiers treat them with cold suspicion. No smiles, no welcome. Just silence and hard stares. After 6 hours, the truck stops at a military headquarters building. NKVD officers, Soviet secret police, in blue caps wait outside. Mikhail's stomach drops. He knows what this means. They separate the 10 men immediately. Mikhail is taken to a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a single light bulb. An NKVD interrogator sits down across from him. Middle-aged, dead eyes, bureaucrat's face. Name: Devyataev, Mikhail Petrovich, Senior Lieutenant, Fighter Pilot. You said you were Private Grigoriev when captured. Explain. Mikhail's mouth goes dry. I switched documents to avoid execution. Germans killed pilots immediately. So you lied. To survive. You were captured. Why didn't you fight to the death? I was shot down, wounded, unconscious. Excuses. You could have fought. You could have ended your life rather than surrender. I wanted to live. I wanted to escape and return to service. You lived in German camps for 7 months. What did you do for the Germans? Nothing. I was a slave laborer. You learned to fly German aircraft. Who taught you? Nobody taught me. I'm a pilot. I figured it out. Impossible. You're lying. You cooperated with Germans. They trained you. You're a collaborator, possibly a spy. The interrogation goes on for 12 hours. The same questions over and over, trying to find contradictions. Did you work for the Germans? Did you give them information? Why should we believe you escaped rather than being sent as a plant? Mikhail's mind spins. He risked everything to return home. He stole a bomber from the most secure facility in Nazi Germany. He brought back intelligence on Hitler's secret weapons. And now, his own side treats him like a traitor. The other 9 men face identical interrogations. NKVD separates them, checks their stories for inconsistencies. The logic is simple. The escape is too incredible. Therefore, it must be false. Therefore, they must be German agents. They send all 10 men to a filtration camp, essentially a prison for returned POWs. Barbed wire, guards, interrogations every few days. Mikhail has traded a German concentration camp for a Soviet one. The wounded man dies after 2 weeks, infection from his gunshot. The Soviet doctors didn't prioritize him. Why waste resources on a possible traitor? Months pass. June 1945. The war ends. Germany surrenders. But Mikhail remains imprisoned, waiting for a decision on his fate. Then, a breakthrough. Soviet intelligence investigates his story. They send teams to Usedom Island, now occupied by Soviet forces. The teams find everything exactly as Mikhail described. The concentration camp, the V-2 launch facilities, the airfield, even the empty hardstand where the He-111 was stolen. More importantly, they recover the wrecked bomber. Inside, they find technical equipment for tracking V-2 missiles in flight, highly classified German technology. Mikhail didn't just escape, he delivered priceless intelligence. In August 1945, they release Mikhail and the surviving 8 escapees, but no ceremony, no recognition. The escape is classified. Officially, Mikhail was simply liberated from German captivity, like millions of others. He returns home to Kazan, a ghost of himself. He weighed 95 kilograms before the war, now 38 kilograms. His wife barely recognizes him. The Soviet government gives him no job, no support. He's technically a veteran, but POWs are tainted in Stalin's USSR. People whisper, he was captured, he must have collaborated. How else did he survive? Mikhail enrolls in river navigation school, learns to pilot cargo ships on the Volga River, from fighter jets and German bombers to river barges. The irony is not lost on him. For 12 years, he lives in obscurity. A decorated fighter ace, survivor of 4 concentration camps, pilot of the most daring escape in military history, reduced to ferrying cargo on a provincial river. Then, 1957. Mikhail receives a telegram. Report to Moscow, urgent. He travels to the capital, terrified. Is this another interrogation? More accusations? At 40 years old, he still has nightmares about NKVD cells. Instead, they take him to a government building. A man waits in an office, Sergei Korolev, chief designer of the Soviet space program, the man who built the first satellite, the first orbital rocket. Korolev stands, shakes Mikhail's hand firmly. Comrade Devyataev, I've been looking for you for years. Do you know what you gave us? Mikhail shakes his head, confused. That German bomber you stole, the tracking equipment inside, the intelligence you provided about Peenemunde's layout. We recovered hundreds of V-2 components based on your information. That technology became the foundation of our rocket program. Without it, we would have been 5 years behind the Americans. Maybe 10. Korolev's eyes are intense. You didn't just escape a prison camp, Mikhail. You changed the space race. Everything we've achieved, every satellite, every rocket, started with what you gave us." Mikhail can't speak. 12 years of shame, suspicion, obscurity. And now this. "The party has decided," Korolev continues. "You will receive the hero of the Soviet Union, immediately. It's 12 years late, but better late than never." August 15th, 1957. Mikhail Petrovich Devyataev is awarded the Gold Star Medal, the highest honor in the Soviet Union. The ceremony is small, quiet. Stalin is dead, Khrushchev is in power, and attitudes toward POWs are slowly changing. Mikhail stands on the stage, feeling the weight of the medal. He thinks of his 9 comrades, especially the one who died in the filtration camp. He thinks of the thousands who died in Peenemunde, worked to death building Hitler's rockets. And he thinks of that February day in 1945 when 10 condemned men decided impossible was better than waiting for death. Mikhail returns to Kazan, a hero of the Soviet Union. Finally, the whispers stop. People no longer cross the street to avoid him. His neighbors smile instead of glaring. Local newspapers run stories. Our hero, the pilot who stole Hitler's bomber. But the recognition feels hollow, 12 years late. One of his fellow escapees already dead, not from German bullets but from Soviet indifference. Others scattered across the USSR, damaged, struggling to rebuild lives that were shattered twice, once by Germans, once by their own government. Mikhail continues working as a river captain. He finds he prefers it. The Volga is peaceful. No gunfire, no interrogations, no nightmares about skeleton faces and striped uniforms. Just water, sky, and the rhythm of a cargo ship cutting through current. But sometimes, on night shifts when the river is black glass reflecting stars, Mikhail thinks about that flight. 4 minutes of raw terror. 10 men who should have been dead, flying a bomber they barely knew how to control, pursued by the entire German military machine. What possessed them? Desperation, obviously, but also something else. A refusal. A rejection of the script written for them by camps, guards, and barbed wire. They were told, "You are slaves. You will work until you die. Accept it." Instead, they said, "No, we're taking that aircraft. Watch us." The Soviet space program explodes in the late 1950s and 60s. October 1957, Sputnik 1, first satellite. April 1961, Yuri Gagarin, first human in space. Every launch uses rockets descended from German V-2 technology, recovered from Peenemunde, based partly on intelligence Mikhail delivered. Korolev sends Mikhail invitations to launches at Baikonur Cosmodrome. Mikhail goes to a few, stands in the observation area watching massive R-7 rockets thunder into the sky, shaking the earth, tearing holes in the atmosphere. Each one carries a piece of that stolen He-111 in its DNA. A journalist asks him once, "Do you think your escape helped the space program?" Mikhail considers. "I stole an airplane to save my life. If it also helped us reach space, that's good. But 9 other men were with me. Don't forget them." The journalist writes it down, but the headline the next day reads, "Hero Pilot, My Escape Built Soviet Rockets." Mikhail crumples the newspaper. That's not what he said. That's not the point. The point is this: Ivan Krivonorgov, who navigated by stars, Vladimir Sokolov, who knew engines like poetry, the 8 others whose names the newspapers never print, the one who died in a Soviet camp after surviving German ones. They all chose impossible over certain death. Together, that's what mattered. 1970s, 80s. Mikhail ages into his 60s, then 70s. He retires from river work, lives quietly in Kazan with his wife, gives occasional interviews to students and historians. Always the same questions. What did it feel like? Weren't you terrified? How did you learn to fly the bomber? He answers patiently, but inside he's thinking, you want a story about bravery and heroism. I'll give you the truth. It was luck. Blind, stupid luck stacked on desperation. If the German mechanic had returned 2 minutes earlier, we'd have been shot. If the fuel tanks were half empty instead of full, we'd have crashed in the Baltic. If the left landing gear had collapsed on takeoff instead of landing, we'd have cartwheeled into a fireball. 10 men, 1 chance, 1,000 ways to die. They happened to hit the one path that led to survival. Call it heroism if you want. Mikhail calls it mathematics and madness. But there's something else too, something harder to name. In the camps, they tried to erase him, turn him into a number, a unit of labor, meat for their war machine. Every day was designed to make him forget he was human. The escape was proof. Proof that he was still Mikhail Devyataev, fighter pilot, still a man with hands that could fly, a mind that could plan, a will that refused to break. The He-111 wasn't just transportation, it was a statement. November 2002. Mikhail Petrovich Devyataev dies in Kazan at age 85. Thousands attend his funeral. Veterans, pilots, cosmonauts, students. The Russian Air Force sends a delegation. Mikhail's coffin is draped with the Russian flag. At the cemetery, they unveil a monument, a stylized Heinkel He-111 nose, glass glinting in autumn sun pointed skyward. The inscription reads, Mikhail Petrovich Devyataev, 1917-2002. Fighter pilot, hero of the Soviet Union, the man who stole freedom. His story becomes legend, books, documentaries, a feature film. But the best testament is invisible. Every rocket that roars from Baikonur, every satellite crossing overhead, every spacecraft bound for orbit carries a fragment of that February day in 1945. 10 condemned men who saw a bomber and decided, that's ours now. 10 skeletons in striped rags who became pilots, navigators, engineers. 10 slaves who tore a hole in barbed wire using wings made of German steel. The Germans had a word, Vergeltungswaffe, vengeance weapon. They built V-2 rockets to punish their enemies. But the real vengeance came from Mikhail Devyataev and his crew. They stole Hitler's tools of destruction and transformed them into tools of exploration. Turned weapons into spacecraft, turned death machines into vehicles that touch the stars. That's the impossible made real, not just the escape, not just the flight. The idea that even in hell, even stripped of everything, humans can build ladders to heaven using whatever's at hand, even if it's a bomber stolen from devils. And that's worth remembering long after the names fade and the monuments crumble. 10 men proved it. One impossible February afternoon in 1945. The world is different because they refused to die quietly.